Hello everyone, it's Liv here. As some of you may know, I have a very strong passion for music. I almost feel like it's the only thing in life that I really truly understand. So I thought I'd turn it into a nice talking kind of episode show thing where I go through all the influences that I have, like what music has influenced me in this world, what bands, what musicians, and I'm going to call it the Live Forever show, L-I-V, forever, as obviously Liv is my name. But whether you're listening to this from your UK, you're about to go to sleep, you're listening to this in America, wherever you are from around the world, drop down in the comments where you're from, because I find it very intriguing that people would take the time out of their day to listen to my voice. But yeah, so this is the first episode, and it would only seem reasonable that the first episode I talk about my favourite band, certainly not bland, my favourite band on the planet, and that would be The Libertines. Specifically Pete Doherty or Peter Doherty. He's been, people throw labels around so easily. For example, smack rat, he's useless, he's a good for nothing. Do you know what I mean? Label him as some sort of junkie. It's easy to point fingers, easy to, call people just by that. If I was in his position, I certainly wouldn't want to be known as that, bearing in mind of all the achievements he's done in his life. And I really feel like actually with addiction it's very difficult, because Pete is such a clever man. I mean, you hear stories of him from when he was a teenager or barely a teenager, entering poetry competitions and coming first place, and it just makes complete sense that this man is a true genius, in my opinion anyway. I mean, I look at some of the Libertines, Baby Shambles, even Pete Doherty's solo work, and you really go into the lyrics and you think, like, that is phenomenal. I would give my left arm to be able to write like Pete Doherty. It's certainly in Baby Shambles' song, Lost Art of Murder, could roll a 4, could roll a 9, find yourself washed up in paradise. 4 plus 9, 13, which is deemed as an unlucky number. Do you know what I mean? It's just little things in his lyrics that are just absolutely genius. And as I touched upon before, it's easy for newspapers to kind of label him as, he's just a junkie, he's a smack rat. But then these same people will completely idolise heroes such as Keith Richards. Obviously nothing against Keith Richards. The Rolling Stones are a class band that I was brought up on as well. And I don't really understand what makes the difference between Keith Richards or Ozzy Osbourne and then Pete Doherty, when it's quite evident that they all struggled with the same problems. I'd say, if anything, Keith Richards was worse. But then you'd go home after an, hard day at work and have a glass of wine. And I'm not saying that's, obviously it's very, very different to Class A's or whatever. But everyone has some sort of addiction that keeps pain away. That's how I feel, in my opinion. Like, I love a glass of wine every now and again. If I get stressed out, if I just want to unwind, I'll have a glass of wine. And I completely get it. Obviously, it's very different. Legality, can't even bloody speak. The legal side of things is very different. And obviously the consequences are as well. But, I don't like touching upon too much about addiction, because as I mentioned before, Pete Doherty, it's never really the drugs that screamed out for me with him. It's always the fashion, and it's for me, it's always the lyrics. I just can't really fathom how anyone could say he's crap when I'd arguably say the best lyricist since like Bob Dylan or Morrissey. I would say so anyway, but obviously we're all entitled to our opinion. You can disagree with me or agree with me, it's completely up to you. But there's a slight intro for you, and I thought I'd just talk about how I got into the Libertines, Pete Doherty, and actually some personal experiences I've had. Because I look back on experiences and I think, wow, like, I can't believe that happened to me. But so first of all, I remember being in my room. I think I was about 14 years old, and my parents bought me a really lovely, is it like a Technics sound system, like the big stack ones that you'd find in the 90s. But because I always loved music, old school kind of vinyls, cassettes, for some reason really did something for me. It was just listening to an album in its entirety rather than singles. The sound of vinyl would play when you're scratching it just really captivated me from a young age. And I remember my father telling me, you should listen to Music When the Lights Go Out by the Libertines. I was like, Okay. Always remember that album growing up. Obviously, Pete and Carl on the front and the Libertines in big and bold on, in front of them on the front cover. And I heard Music When the Lights Go Out, and I thought, this is the best love or falling out of love song I've ever heard in my life. Bearing in mind, you got like Tears in Heaven, Eric Clapton, or Layla, or, likes as that, or Wonderful Tonight, Eric Clapton, I should really say, not the ones about his passed away son. But as love songs go, I really delved into that song, Music When the Lights Go Out, and I really took it apart. And I always have an argument with people. Lots of people say that lyrics shouldn't really matter. You can sing about everything, but if the music's good, it matters. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to give an example of that because I'm very much like lyrically based in what I listen to. But for me, Music When the Lights Go Out was the first song lyrically I heard that I thought, this is absolutely insane. The metaphors, I no longer hear the music, aka I'm falling out of love with you. It gives me goosebumps even to this day. So whenever people ask me what my favourite Libertine song is, I always say Music When the Lights Go Out. Obviously, for me, I've always been captivated by the really old demos, so like Pay the Lady or Anything But Love or Plan A, Cyclops, General Smuts, all that malarkey. But Music When the Lights Go Out, for me, it always comes back to that song. And as mentioned before, and I feel like Pete Doherty is very similar to Noel Gallagher in the aspect that Noel Gallagher taught himself to play guitar. Carl Barat from the Libertines taught Pete Doherty how to play guitar. But because Noel Gallagher and Pete Doherty are both very, very lyrically talented, for me, it kind of takes it away from the music. Like, if Pete Doherty sang what he sang over chords that made no sense, for me, I'd still see that as, like, really good because the lyrics completely outweigh the music. And you do get people that do say, as I mentioned before, you can sing whatever as long as the music's good. I would disagree with them people. I mean, to an extent, the music's good and you can shout on about, I don't know, roast chicken or, paprika. You can tell I'm hungry, can't you? But and I get that, but for me, I've always been a big kind of, I just really relate to it, I think. I think when you listen to a song and you feel something, and falling out of love with someone, I remember going through a really hard breakup. Music When the Lights Go Out was kind of the song that determined the breakup for me, as in, like, I no longer love you, but I will always love you. And that song kind of haunted me, but kind of in a beautiful way. It's quite hard to explain. I don't associate that song with that anymore, but I just think it's the most beautiful song written, to be honest. I mean, I'm up there with that song, and when people ask me what my favourite song is of all time, I always say Music When the Lights Go Out or Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. Two very different songs, obviously. Two very different meanings, but the same very heartfelt, sincere feeling. But the thing I love a lot about Pete Doherty is obviously his references to these great poets, William Blake, Oscar Wilde. It's nameless. It's endless. That's what I'm supposed to say. And I think in this day and age, like, poetry reading, it's all in songs. I can't remember the last time I actually sat down and saw someone read a book. I'm not blaming you, it's the modern world, I completely understand that. I mean, I'm not exactly a saint myself when it comes to reading. I do touch upon books and poems every now and again, but I'm not exactly an avid reader. But it's just going back to the classics. I mean, Morrissey touched upon a lot of Oscar Wilde, and then you get Pete Doherty touched upon it. And for me, I think that's just the referencing and the way they adapt their lyrics into the poet or the poetry, just so intelligent in a way I can't speak about. I mean, I kind of wish I was intelligent in that way when it comes to my own songwriting. It's almost like I try and force myself to write like them, and I realise actually for them it's not forced whatsoever because they're just very, very, very talented. And I will look into poems and everything and try and make a song about it, and I realise actually it's probably not from a sincere place in my heart, whereas with Pete and Morrissey, I'd say it really comes from a place in their heart, and I mean it touches upon many, because I just think it's just absolute class. It's quite rare. I'd say the only kind of band that really do that nowadays are Fontaines DC. So Green Chatton, lovely chap. I've met him a couple of times. that's the closest I'd say you'd get to poetry in this day and age. I mean, a very common theme with poetry is repetition, so repeating the same line, and Green Chatting does that a lot, especially in Doggerel in the early days of Fontaines. I was quite lucky to see Fontaines before Doggerel even came out in Brighton, 2020 or 2021. But yeah, I'd say that was very, very class. But moreover, I thought we'd get more into the personal side of the Libertines. So when did I first meet Pete Doherty and Carl Barat and John and Gary? Can't forget about them too. So I remember I bumped into Carl Barat first. I remember that. I was actually wearing a Libertines t-shirt, funny enough, and I was walking through Camden, and I kind of looked at someone, and I was like, that's Carl Barat from the Libertines. And I took a double take, and I was like, oh my God, it is. And it's like, what do I do? I think I was 15. 16. I kind of panicked and I went up to him and I'm like, you Carl Barat? And he went, yeah. And I went, please can I have a photo? And I've still got the photo like somewhere. It's mad. I'll pin it. It's the thumbnail on the video. Lovely guy. Really, really lovely. Very talented. I'd say he's one of the most underrated guitar players. I mean, you listen to Plan A by the Libertines and the tremolo picking he does, and that is absolutely insane. But it's very weird because I always say this to people. So when I've met Pete Doherty about 6 times now, and when I've met him, you feel this presence that is very unexplainable, but you almost feel like you are around such a kind of like influential, I can't speak, like a very like big like figurehead in your life. You feel like, who is this person? And I want to know more about him. Obviously everyone knows who he is, but it's a very odd feeling you get. I can't really describe it. It's like I've met Noel Gallagher, but with Pete Doherty, you feel like this presence. It's very hard to explain, but Pete Doherty, hands down, is the nicest celebrity I have ever met in my entire life, along with Johnny Marr. He was lovely as well. But I remember I was walking through Margate and I had my Stratocaster, beautiful Fender Stratocaster. For those who don't know, it's a lovely guitar, and I had it on my back, and I bumped into Pete Doherty and he goes, you playing a gig? And I went, what? And I looked and I was like, oh my God, it's Pete Doherty. He goes, are you playing a gig? And I was like, oh, no, I've just got this. I've just come from college. I'm doing my music course and all that malarkey. And he goes, oh, what guitar you got? Fender Stratocaster. And I got it out and he got my guitar. I'm looking up this exact guitar while I'm recording this right now. And he played Death on the Stairs on my Telecaster and signed it for me. Not my Telecaster, sorry. My Stratocaster, and he signed it for me. And he played Death on the Stairs outside the Albion Rooms in Margate before it was the Albion Rooms, when it was just him living in it. And he played Death on the Stairs on the staircase. And I just looked in complete awe and I was like, bloody Norman, man. Like, imagine being able to write a song like that, like especially Death on the Stairs, like lyrically, like absolutely insane, that song. Like, you really deep, like delve into it. It's a beautiful song. I kind of stood there in awe, and he goes, oh, there you go. And I was like, oh, thanks, Pete. Thanks for that. And I was like, oh my God, I just met Pete Doherty. And then I was at a Libertines gig in Margate. God, I'm trying to think of the year. I went through a breakup, so I want to say about 2019, perhaps. Very amazing Libertines gig. I think Winter Gardens in Margate, if that rings any bells to any people. And I went there and then I kind of had a bit of a shit time because when you go through a recent breakup, you share lots of music and songs together, and that's all the songs we shared together, and I was listening to them live and I was like, oh, this is not helping. So after the gig, I kind of went for a walk on my own around Margate at 1 a.m, and I was walking around Margate at 1 a.m, and I look over and I'm like, oh my God, it's Pete. And then I walk over and it's just Pete, like, sat there on the ledge, and I go over to him and I'm like, oh, you're right, Pete, right, good gig. And he was like, yeah, not too bad. I ended up having a really good conversation with him, Pete Doherty, on the wall in Margate at 1 a.m, just chatting. Do you know what I mean? Just chatting, obviously saying how much I appreciate his music, because I was brought up on his music. If there's any band in this world, it's the Libertines. Everything comes back to Pete, everything comes back to the Libertines. Had a great chat with him, and then just kind of went back to my hotel with my friend Sarah, and then that, not with Pete obviously, but just kind of like, oh, had a really nice talk with Pete. And she was like, you what? And I was like, yeah, had a nice talk with Pete. And she was like, I missed out on him. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But it's almost like, I don't know, I think the press give him a bad rep. They always will. They just want a story. But if people that truly know and understand the way the Libertines are, Pete Doherty is, he's a very intelligent, very respectful, very well-spoken man. when it comes down to it. And I think it's such a shame that he's tarnished with this brush of, oh, he's just a junkie, and it does my head in, to be honest with you. It's not the nicest way to be portrayed, and I'm sure he probably thinks exactly the same, like he would hate to be portrayed like that. But yeah, moving on forward anyway, I want to talk about my first ever Libertines show. So I went to see the Libertines with my sister in the Brighton Centre. I want to say it was about 2017 or 2018. I remember my sister punching a woman around the face. That gig was so rowdy. Rowdiest gig I've ever been to. Libertines, Brighton Centre. Back in the day, 2017, 2018, 2019, it was around then. Was it the Sharabang tour? Perhaps. Violent crowd. This girl was off her nut. She started pulling my sister's hair out, so my sister went round and swung her and punched her in the face. And that was actually when the Libertines played Tomblands for one of the first times live, which is one of my favourite songs. And I thought, this is really weird, like one of my favourite songs getting played by the Libertines right now. But I remember back then, the ticket was £25, and obviously being at that age where you just come out of school, you have no money, you have no job. I was like, £25, that's so much for a gig. Look at the gigs nowadays, you're paying about 60, 70 quid for a ticket. But yeah, Brighton Centre was the first time I saw them, and I think from there it just kind of like dwelled into this complete obsession with, you know, I mean, Anthem for Doomed Youth, what's that, Wilfred Owen, like, and even like Gunga Din refers back to the poem You're a Better Man Than I. Do you know what I mean? It's just like these references that are just like absolutely amazing to me. Anyway, but the main subject on this that I really want to touch upon is that I met my best friend through the Libertines. So those of you may or may not know, I actually ran the #1 Libertines fan account on Instagram called Time for Heroes, because I wanted to talk to like-minded people that adored the Libertines as much as I do and saw like the fascination in it, if you say, because I felt so alone by being in a small town by the seaside where no one really appreciated it as much as I did, and my sister and my father. And a girl called Angie came into the radar, and Angie, I'd say, is my best friend for life and is a friend I love forever, because we just are exactly the same person. We can go months without talking, but we will meet up and it'll be like the same old times. And I met her through the Libertines because she was the biggest Libertines fan ever. And we just started kind of talking, and then we ended up going to the same Libertines gig, and we met in London. It was the Robert Smith one at the South Bank Centre. And I was like, bloody hell, this is a friend for life. And since then, we've been absolutely inseparable. I think we've been best friends for about 6 years now. And everything comes back to Pete Doherty and the Libertines with her. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, my best friend I met through them. So if it wasn't for Pete, I wouldn't be best friends with one of the best people I've ever met in my life. So yeah, I'm always very, very grateful for that. But we share and cherish loads of memories, the Libertines. I mean, we run around the streets of Camden or Islington just absolutely screaming boys in the band, and it's moments like that I just think, you know, that's what life's all about. Or we go to Teesdale Street or up the Bracket Alley in Grove Passage in Bethnal Green and retrace the steps as the Libertines in that early age. And it's a meaning of life, I think, with the Libertines. It's like you feel like you are a libertine. It's the skint and minted lifestyle, we always used to call it. I remember a story as well where me and Angie were at our friend Sarah's house back in the day, and we were so skint, but we really wanted to get pissed up. So we went on the tube from, I think it was from Victoria to Bethnal Green or Acton or something like that, and I found a Moncler hat on the tube, and I was like, oh my God, we're so broke. What am I going to do? So I took the hat. I mean, no, it wasn't anyone's. It was literally on the floor. I took it, sold it on Depop the same day, got a bottle of vodka, got pissed and listened to Baby Shambles all night. Back when we were 18. I think she was only 17, but yeah, it's mad. It's memories like that. I think it's really a band that brings everyone together, the Libertines, and it will for the rest of my life, and I will never ever fall out of love with that lifestyle or the music that has come from Pete Doherty, as he is probably one of the most influential people in my life. Speaking upon this is actually quite a funny story. So I had a job interview for McDonald's when I was 17, and I thought, oh, McDonald's job interview is going to be piss easy, you know, what they're going to ask, how many qualifications you got, or can you count to 10 kind of thing. And the question he asked, I remember his name, Simon, the old manager at McDonald's. He said, who's the most influential person in your life right now? And I was like, you know, he was probably expecting to hear my mum, my dad, something like that. And I went, Pete Doherty. And he went, oh, bit of an odd one. Why is that? And I went, because he may be labelled as many terrible things, but deep down he's one of the most sincere, intelligent people I possibly know, and he's caused such like a big influence onto other people and has changed people's lives. And he went, with that answer, that's completely fair enough. And I went, damn right it is, you know. It's so easy to label people straight off the bat with, you know, terms like that. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up with the last time I saw Pete Doherty perform live was actually in December, Islington Town Hall or something like that. He did a lovely acoustic set. Also featured Jack Jones on Trampoline, another great another great band, and another fantastic lyricist, Jack Jones from Trampoline. But yeah, I saw him at the Islington Town Hall, and I remember I was wearing my Fred Perry and my skirt, my tights, and Pete went, "Oh, you look so beautiful," and I went, "What?" "Oh, you look so beautiful," and I was like, "Okay, that's it. I've completely won in life now. Pete Doherty's called me beautiful," but no, nonetheless, obviously, that gig was amazing. It just shows that if one man has written all these songs and he can strip it down to an acoustic set and it still sounds exactly how it does, or exactly how it's meant to be portrayed, it just shows that it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'll always thank Pete for his music, and it's such a big part. And as I mentioned in like the first bit, I said Pete, it's about his lyrics and fashion. I want to touch upon that the first Fred Perry I ever bought was the burgundy Fred Perry because I saw Pete Doherty wearing it, and I thought, yeah, that looks sick as fuck. I really want to wear that. So very much influenced my fashion taste as well as my music, and actually got me into reading a lot of Oscar Wilde's works, which I don't think I would ever really would have touched upon if it wasn't for the lyricism and him like that. So I think I always appreciate, love and respect the Libertines, especially Pete Doherty for that, and I think he's an absolutely class musician, and for me, he will always be the number one songwriter for me of all time. But yeah, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this little episode. It's a slight snippet into my life and how much the Libertines changed my life. I mean, I can't really leave without saying my favourite song. My favourite Pete Doherty song, I would either say is Unbilo Titled or Lost Art of Murder. Favourite Libertines song, Music When the Lights Go Out, or Plan A, perhaps. Horror Show really grows on me as well because that's a great song. But yeah, anyway, nonetheless, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you have listened this far, comment. Oh, what should you comment? If you've listened this far, guys, comment Live Forever, but L-I-V forever, if you've made it this far. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Drop your favourite artists in the comments and I'll see if I can touch upon them. I've got great stories about Paul McCartney, etc, etc. But guys, I appreciate your ears, and everybody having a fantastic rest of your day, or have a good night's sleep, wherever you're watching this from. Yeah, yours sincerely, Live Forever. Goodbye.